Our next speaker, Professor Gavin Maneveldt. Welcome, Gavin. Gavin is a champion for many years and always exploring new ideas, innovative tools. So welcome, Gavin. Can you hear us?
Yes, thank you, Juliet.
Are you going to share your presentation?
Hi, Juliet. So I've sent a presentation to the team. I prepared the presentation as a narrated PowerPoint, and I thought I'd use that format because that pretty much gives the sense of how I would have presented to the class. So I'm hoping that that presentation can be given. If there is a challenge in presenting that, then I can talk to it. But maybe we can listen to the presentation instead.
Whatever you decide. Can you see your screen, Gavin? Or
so I can see the screen.
Yes, Norina,
Good day, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this presentation on a multimodal approach for student engagement, which I suppose really should be more aptly termed a multimodal approach to learning. An important point of departure is perhaps my teaching philosophy and methodology. All of my courses have a strong student-centered approach to learning. This approach forces students to take responsibility for their own learning, where the emphasis is on understanding and not on rote learning. Sometimes also called a resource-centered learning approach, this methodology has students relying heavily on various resources, including their fellow students in a peer-facilitated sort of learning fashion. Even I, as the lecturer, should be seen as a resource and not merely as the sole avenue for generating new knowledge. This approach is in keeping with modern trends in education to improve the level of student comprehension. Key to the success of this multimodal approach was a Canvas online environment and the support from the CIECT team. For my second year class, as a start of the module, I incorporated the pre-laboratory practical simulations that were appropriate for my module, namely microscopy and the dressing for the lab simulations, the interface for which can be seen at the bottom of the slide. Students were required to successfully complete the simulations prior to them engaging with the physical practicals. Although this was still prior to the COVID-19 lockdown, the pre-lab simulations proved invaluable as they prepared students for the work to be done in the practical classes. Demonstrators could also now focus on the more essential tasks related to the practical themselves, rather than the basic skills required to complete the practical tasks. The positive interactions with the students demonstrated that they engaged successfully and meaningfully with the pre-lab simulations. In addition, the lessons tool was used to establish the weekly activities I required the students to complete. Seen here is the week 1 activities for my third year class. Students were required to check off an activity as they completed it. This way I was able to monitor the student progress and identify inactive and resource limited students. As can be seen from this particular example to the bottom right, student 1 did not complete activities 6 and 7, activities that were essentially identified as related to device constraints. I use concept mapping extensively throughout my teaching, both as my primary tool of lecture delivery, as well as a requirement for my third year practical submissions. Concept maps are graphical tools for organizing and representing knowledge. Unlike a mind map, a concept map is explicit in its meaning and leaves no doubt in the reader's mind as to what is being portrayed. Concept maps have a strong psychological and epistemological foundation and is based on 2 theories of education. These include Joseph Novak's theory of knowledge and David Ausubel's simulation theory of learning. These theories tell us that meaningful learning occurs when we integrate new concepts as well as their relationships into our cognitive knowledge structure through linking this new knowledge to concepts we already understand. So with this in mind, here is a concept map of my entire second year course on lower plant diversity. As mentioned previously, I use concept mapping as my primary tool of lecture delivery. This is presented in stages so as not to overwhelm the student, but as time passes and the content is covered, the concept map expands. From this particular concept map, I'm able to run any preloaded electronic resource, be it a PowerPoint presentation, a video clip, an MS Word or a PDF document, an image, etc. A whole lot of other electronic resources. Through the concept map, I'm able to navigate to any part of the course, including the need for any ad hoc revision or to remind the students of the connectivity between various bits of content. Everything I need to do is but one click away without having to close or minimize the program, browse for a document, all of which can be both time-consuming, not to mention disruptive and concentration breaking. Here is the example of the concept map for my third year class on ecosystem diversity. The symbols attached to the various concepts represent the resources, the electronic resources that are preloaded to the concept map. As mentioned previously, I even have the final year students use concept maps to produce their own practical assignments. This is a great way for them to get to understand just how much they know of a topic. This particular rubric, developed in Canva and made available to the students from the very start, was used for both summative and formative assessment. In an academic institution, probably the greatest benefit of concept mapping to a student is the ability to produce better essays. Unlike mind maps, concept maps are strongly hierarchical, where the most general concepts are at the top of the hierarchy, and the more specific, less general concepts are arranged hierarchically below. Thus, concept maps tend to be read from the top, progressing down towards the bottom. This makes it possible for the learner to understand the logical presentation of the information, and so making it easy to decide the logical flow of information in the essay itself. As way of evidence, I include the recent comments from the external examiner for the third year module. It also seems to suggest that concept maps provide an additional benefit to remote learning, as this examiner, incidentally the same for the past 3 years, has seen a far greater degree of engagement with exam questions than in previous years. Here's a concept map summarizing the interventions undertaken. The green domain in the middle speaks to the learning approach and my expectations from the students. The orange domain to the left speaks to the teaching methods employed and includes both the various applications utilized as well as e-resources on Canva's structured online environment. Critical to all of this, though, was the yellow domain to the right, understanding the students' individual needs. Cognizant of data costs and access, all electronic resources uploaded to Canva were kept to manageable file sizes. Lectures were made available in standalone PDF format, as well as narrated PowerPoint presentations, very much like the one I'm giving right now. And these, of course, if you size them up, they are roughly 6 to 12 times smaller in file size than the standard MP4 videos that these days are used largely for this kind of presentation. More importantly, the lectures were available asynchronously to accommodate differently abled students. Unfortunately, device constraints such as laptops and personal computers was not something that was accounted for in the delivery of this particular course. The few students that had challenges will have to be accommodated in the catch-up phase. For additional consideration, I thought I would include some data released by Regus, a global flexible workspace provider. The company has been commissioning research on various aspects of remote and flexible work for over 10 years and have provided some insightful state-of-the-nation snapshots of the world of work today. According to their findings, South Africans are working remotely more in both days per week and more hours per day than most staff from other countries surveyed. The challenges of remote working must thus be considered for remote teaching and learning. Distractions from family and other household disturbances, as well as difficulties with concentration, are the leading causes for the lack of productivity. Technology is the key enabler of mobility, and comparatively speaking, South Africa has the slowest and most unreliable internet connectivity, making working from home particularly challenging. These factors must be considered when engaging our students. This brings my presentation to an end. Thank you kindly for listening to the presentation. I'm happy for any comments and suggestions you may have.
Thank you so much, Gavin. And
my pleasure, Juliet.
Yes, thank you so much. We can't thank you enough for being such a great champion. Not only now, this is a reminder again, this journey started way before Fees Must Fall, way before COVID-19. But you continued during this difficult time, and always considering the student, always thinking about the student. And what else can I say? You modeled the behavior. So the voiceovers were very clear. And if I was a student in your class, giving me the content and then adding the voiceovers, it just shows that I was more attentive. And so thank you. And we will continue to support you, Gavin. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Judith.